if you have been on other sessions, thank you very much for spending your time with us this week. If this is your first session, thank you very much for attending. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the best session of the week because as my sort of advertisement for the session has been, this is what I personally believe is Microsoft's best kept secret. So just to quickly recap, for those that have been on other sessions, as Sam mentioned, the session will be recorded and we'll make it available for you to have access to it later on if you'd like to review the session. Obviously, this is the first time we've done a week like this. You know, we are desperate for your feedback and your comments. Obviously, there will be a survey at the end. We really would like you to fill that in. Plus, obviously, if you feel that you would like to sort of email us, you can either use the techweek@qa.com email address, or you're more than welcome, if it's a technical question, to sort of email me directly. I'm more than happy with that. If you do want to send a technical question and send it to the TechWeek email address, just make sure you include the presenter's name, which is Paul Gregory, and the session name, so either System Center Orchestrator or SCOrch, something along those lines. As Sam mentioned, if you'd like to post questions during the session, then please use the chat window. I do appreciate that some of your questions might be quite large, so again, feel free to email me after the event, and I will do whatever I can to answer all those questions in a timely fashion. So I guess really what I want to start with is a demonstration. And really this is a demonstration that's going to run all the way through the session. And it is a demonstration which yourselves are going to be interactive on. Well, hopefully some of you, we've got quite a few attendees, and hopefully some of you are sitting in front of computers where you have email access. So what I want to do is I want to initiate the demonstration, and then effectively I want to tell you what I would like you to do. Okay, so I'm not really going to explain an awful lot about what I'm doing, but again, I didn't want it just to sort of magically happen. But I effectively have a demonstration which is going to monitor an email box, and it's going to reply back to that email box. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually start this activity on, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more detail about what this is actually doing later on. Okay, and actually what this is going to do is monitor my live email box. So what I would like yourselves to do, okay, now that's actually running, is at some point during the session, you can do it now, you can do it in a bit, and I'll even leave it running for half an hour after the session if you want to. So if you could send me an email, so paul.gregory@qa.com, and it doesn't matter what's in the email, except the subject line must contain the phrase Tech Space Week. It doesn't need to be capital T and capital W, but it just needs to contain Tech Space Week. And hopefully, Orchestrator will reply back to you. So that's the plan in terms of what we're hoping to try and achieve here. So hopefully, some of you should receive emails back before the end of the session. Hopefully, it will respond back within about a minute. It's actually waking up every minute and checking for new emails. So hopefully, that will just be an interesting little demo going on. And I'll tell you about a use for that later on as well. So just in terms of the slides, I'm actually going to drop out of using the slide in here, and that's because I've got a couple of quite important animated slides. So I'm actually just going to switch over and share my desktop so that you'll be able to see the slides being presented from my desktop. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see my desktop, and I'm just going to spin my slides up. And hopefully we're on that live demo slide and so on. Just because I've got some important animations going on a couple of slides, and the WebEx tool can't present them, and the animations are quite important. So what are we here to talk about? As I've already mentioned, I regard this as Microsoft's best kept secret. A product which every System Center customer has, Quite often it's one of the least known products, so rarely is it the first thing people actually go and reach for. But actually in reality, whereas this is often the last deployed, if deployed at all, it's possibly one of the first tools that you should consider deploying, because you can get a very significant return on investment quite quickly with this particular piece of technology. So that's hopefully what System Center Orchestrator is going to do for us and allow us to achieve. That's our end goal. So why would we want to use Orchestrator? What would it do for us? Well, effectively, I remember when I used to do Microsoft training courses and Microsoft consultancy 10, 15 years ago, Microsoft used to talk about runbook automation. And when people turn around and say, well, how would Microsoft do runbook automation? Well, in reality, they didn't really have a way of doing it. Yes, we could do batch files. Yes, we could do a bit of VB script. And obviously, more recently, we could do PowerShell. But they didn't really have a proper automation platform. And that's effectively what Orchestrator is. Often people get focused with Orchestrator specifically about automating processes which are under the control of the IT department. But it is quite important to remember that Orchestrator can be used for automating any process related to IT. So it could be activities that are predominantly being done as manual tasks by the rest of the user community. It doesn't have to be something that's under the ownership of the IT department itself. So one of the key things with this piece of technology, which is quite important to get to grips with, is it's multi-vendor. So yes, it integrates with the rest of the System Center stack, and it integrates with a variety of other Microsoft products, but it will talk to very, very significant vendors out there and technologies out there. And generally, if the products have got an interface, we can communicate with it. The whole idea is it comes with a whole load of pre-built objects, which allow us to rapidly develop automation activities, so we can get really quick return on investment. And again, we obviously have an Orchestrator course, and I remember sitting there at the end of a course where we just done an exercise to build a self-service VM provisioning infrastructure, and one of the gentlemen on the course turned around and said to me, "I could have written that in PowerShell." And I said, "You could have." And I said, "How long would it have taken you?" And he said, "Oh, about 4 weeks." And this was something that's just taken him 45 minutes to do in Orchestrator. If he was more than likely to do this task on his own, it would have more than likely taken him half a day. So, speed as far as developing solutions to this product can be intense. Okay, but there's often, when people see this piece of technology, for those who have not seen it at all before, you will find ways that you think, actually, I could plug that into my organization in here, and it would do this task for me, and it would save us, lots of effort, whether that's a simple task that just gets repeated a lot, or it's very error-prone activities, or just very time-consuming activities. And the idea is a lot of this is done without coding or scripting. Now, quite often, as soon as you mention, oh, you can't code, or we don't use coding, we don't use scripting, that naturally implies there's a set of limits around the product. But this will work with coding and scripting as well. So if you really needed to, you can drop out to batch files, you can do PowerShell, VB script, you can even put C# code in there, for example, straight off. So you have a very set of diverse capabilities if that's what you need to do. We're not going to get into elements like wall branching and decision making, but it does have a decision-based engine, so you can get to a point, make a decision on where you want to go, and react accordingly. So we could do those sorts of things if we needed to. So hopefully this really allows us to start to automate an infrastructure. And as soon as we automate, we improve reliability, we improve consistency, we can hit SLAs more effectively, and we actually get to do the exciting stuff, because often a lot of the things that we'll be automating will be the mundane, everyday activities. So just from the point of view of the Orchestrator platform and the rest of System Center, Orchestrator can be seen as effectively the glue that unifies all of the products together. So it allows us to actually look at Configuration Manager, virtual machine manager, operations manager, service management, data protection manager, and unify them. And if we used to think about, all the times Microsoft talk about private cloud, and the System Center is the private cloud deliverable vehicle as far as Microsoft technologies are concerned, really what they're doing is they're actually using the capabilities of Orchestrator to unify those products into a coherent experience to manage that infrastructure. And hopefully I'll show you a demonstration with Operations Manager as we go along to sort of try and demonstrate some of that capability. But the key thing to remember with this technology is it's not about just Microsoft capability. We could easily replace those Microsoft technologies with other vendors' technologies if we wanted to. So we could easily go off and integrate with Veeam from a protection point of view, and Altris from a deployment point of view, and VMware for our virtualization layer and their console, and HP Operations Manager, BMC Remedy, and obviously the list goes on. We could put some CA products in there, some IBM products. It's not about necessarily Microsoft System Center only. So it is important to remember that there is substantial capability to use this platform, even if not all of your components at System Center or the rest of the System Center infrastructure. So I just want to talk a little bit about what Orchestrator looks like. We will see effectively 3 of these pieces, albeit I've got them running on the same virtual machine, and then sort of talk a little bit about how an activity actually runs, and a key sort of concept to grasp behind the technology. So effectively, we have to go through an authoring process. So we have to create an automation. We create that automation for a piece of technology called the Runbook Designer. So we can see that on the top left there. So this is just a sort of standard Windows application. We can drag and drop icons onto it, connect the icons together to determine the direction of execution, okay? And hopefully fill in the relatively simple forms behind them. We've then got the management server. So the management server effectively controls access to the database when using tools like the design utility. So the idea being the management server will give us capabilities like checkout. So you can't have 2 people editing the same automation at the same time, for example. So it provides us a locking system and so on, and the ability when we create new activities to actually go and save them into the database. So the Runbook Designer tool is predominantly a tool used by people that are authoring. We also have what we call an orchestration console. So the orchestration console down the bottom is a web console. This console is, for those that go back to the good old mainframe days, is a bit like a job monitoring console. So this allows you to see what automations exist. It allows you to monitor the running of those automations. It also allows you to start and stop automations as one of the many ways that you can actually do that. No surprise, sitting in the middle of this is obviously a database, so a bit of SQL Server with all of these automations sitting in. And then we have systems that we define as runbook servers. So runbook servers are the actual computer systems which are responsible for carrying out the automations. So they're the machines which will actually take the activities you've asked them to execute, and they will then reach out to the rest of your estate and start to carry out those commands against your estate, whatever those automations might be. As you can see, from the point of view of the runbook server, you can have multiple. That gives you scalability. It also gives you some high availability in the solution. Again, from the point of view of high availability, the database can be clustered, which could give you high availability from the database's point of view. The other components themselves don't need high availability if that's a concern. So, if the Runbook Designer fails, you can just install that on another workstation, for example. The management server is not needed to execute anything. It's only there for authoring processes. So the management server being offline effectively doesn't impact production and so on. So one of the key things that's really important to try and get to grips with Orchestrator, and I put this in here because obviously what I want to try and do is demonstrate this capability, is understand this concept of a data bus. So the data bus actually represents the way information can be passed from one activity to another activity inside an automation task. So when an activity executes, that activity will generate data, whatever that data might be. That data is then effectively published on this data bus, and this data bus is public to all of the other activities that exist inside this automation that you're creating. So therefore, effectively, any activity could actually consume data from a previous activity and then pass that information along onto the next steps and so on. So hopefully what we can see here is if we see the first activity goes and executes, that will generate a whole range of data. Okay, so that's now available to us on the data bus, and it's sitting there. And as we sort of configure the system, what it allows us to do is it allows us to take data from that first step, which can actually be moved in to actually represent data information. That second step now runs, and it will produce its own set of data. So step 3 will now have the ability to consume data from steps 1 and steps 2. Okay, but again, it will also generate its own set of data as well. So whatever data it needs to consume, it can actually bring that data in from those previous steps. It will execute, generate its own set of data, and that will then be placed onto the data bus itself. So that will then actually allow effectively the last step to be able to consume the data from from the previous 3 activities, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's the idea behind this concept of the data bus. And it's a really important concept to get to grips with. And because I'm going to use it, it's something that I thought it was important that I actually explained. So let's go and have start off with something quite simple that we'll then build up in terms of trying to sort of show some of the principles of actually how Orchestrator works. So I'm going to switch over to my virtual machine, which is hopefully running Orchestrator. Okay, so this is the virtual machine which I started that email monitoring. And let's just have a little look. If I go to the log history tab down here, you can actually see there's been a whole range of emails that have been sent. Because effectively, for every person that sent me an email, this would have actually triggered and sort of replied back to those people. So that log history shows me that if we look at it based on the sort of current time as being 1719, we can see the number of times that it's executed since I asked you to start sending me emails and so on. So hopefully some of you have received an email back from Orchestrator. So I guess what we want to do in terms of building an example, we need to have a problem. Okay, so in terms of a problem, what I'm going to imagine as an issue that we've got is if I just go to my Hyper-V manager, you can see that I've got a virtual machine called QA HR app-01. So this virtual machine is an application server which obviously has the HR application on it, whatever that application might be. And effectively, as part of that application running, it generates some audit data. So it generates some log files that we care about because obviously, we're concerned or, we need to make sure that we understand what people are doing with the HR application. So these log files are getting generated. Now, what we want to do is we want to take those log files from that system periodically, and we want to archive them somewhere. So we've actually got an audit server, so the server at the top of the list, okay, and that server is the machine that's actually going to sort of store that data for us. So that's where we're going to move them to. So that's the plan, okay. So a very simple sort of business process, and obviously it'd be something you could say, well, actually I can set a batch file for doing that, and you could. But you know, it should be a process we can all relate to, and hopefully we can start to build that up in Orchestrator. So just to show you at the moment, it's going to minimize the designer down. I've actually got 2 shared folders. So I've got a folder called the HR app logs, and I've got a folder called the archive logs. So the archive logs folder is where I want the files to go, and obviously the HR app logs folder is the folder where the log files are actually going to appear. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do in this particular scenario is tell the system we want to create a runbook. So I'm just going to right click on the scripts to build, because this is where I'm going to create my work activities, and I'm going to say I want to create a new runbook. I'm going to rename this runbook, so we'll imaginatively call it QA Tech Week. That's week with 2 E's. HR log demo. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, obviously, if we want to move log files about, we have to know there's log files there. Now, when you create runbooks inside Orchestrator, runbooks will actually be one of 2 types. It can either be a monitor runbook, so that effectively means a runbook executes constantly. It's looking for a condition. When that condition is true, it will then actually execute. Now, depending on the actual condition you're looking for, that condition might be something that we only go and check for, you know, every 10 seconds. It might be something we go and check for every 30 seconds. So it would depend on what you're actually looking for and how configurable, how often you look for the system or the condition might be. So let's say, for example, we actually want to move files across once we've got 10 files in existence. Okay? That's the point we want to archive, just for the purpose of illustration. So I'm just going to the file management section over here on the right-hand side, and I've got access to a whole range of functions effectively. If I was to scroll along, okay, inside here, as you can see, lots of options in here, but there is actually a monitor folder. So the monitor folder is the object that I wanted to do. Now, I said there was 2 types of runbooks. There's a monitor one, which is, this is going to be a monitor one. But the second type of runbook, and I'll show you an example of one of these in a moment, is what we call an ad hoc runbook. So an ad hoc runbook, for the want of a better phrase, is a runbook that we sort of fire and forget. So the idea is you fire it, the runbook will execute and carry out whatever you want, and then it will die. So therefore it will wait, then it will have to then be initiated again for whenever you want that runbook to execute. So you might have, for example, an external process that might actually initiate a runbook. So for example, you might actually have some service fulfillment capability within your help desk technology. So BMC Remedy, Service Manager from Microsoft, and people could fill a form in and they could request something. Let's say, for example, user could request access, VPN access, for example. And maybe your process dictates that in order to get VPN access, your manager has to approve it. Maybe the IT manager has to approve it because there's a cost. Assuming you get both the approvals, you've then actually got to have some software installed on your machine, and you needed to be added to a group, maybe an Active Directory. So we could actually use our help desk software to do the approval. So we actually could send the email requests or whatever to the line manager and the IT manager to get the approval. But once the approval's been given, your service platform could then send an instruction into Orchestrator to actually say, you now need to execute this runbook. Here are the relevant parameters. So that would be, for example, maybe the user that actually needs the VPN access, and maybe the computer they're going to have VPN access from. And then that would allow it to initiate a remote installation of the software, maybe using Configuration Manager. And it would go and update the group memberships in Active Directory, and then maybe go and email the user to notify them what the current state is and that everything's been done. So that would be an example of an ad hoc runbook that you could actually execute. So I've dragged on the monitor folder, okay? So the monitor folder, I'm going to open this object up, and we get to specify where we would like to monitor. So we can either put a local path in, or in my case, I'm going to put the UNC name in. So I'm actually going to put in, you know, QA HR app -01 slash, and then obviously what the name of the shared folder is. The name of the shared folder is HR app logs. Okay. Now, my application is going to be very well behaved, so the only thing that we would find in that folder will be log files. But if you was doing this, for example, and you end up with mixed file types, you can use a range of filters in here to actually identify the files that you want to pick. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to say that I want to only pick files with a certain file name, and they must match the pattern star.log. Okay, so they've got to have a log extension on them. But in my instance, I don't actually need to do that. The next thing which I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit the triggers tab, and I'm going to specify the number of files is got to be greater than 9. So effectively, when we get 10 files in that folder, the monitor condition is true, and we can then move on to the next step. Now, in my instance, I haven't got any high security going on, even though I'm talking about audit files. But if you did need to specify specific credentials to be able to access a remote share, then on the authentication tab, I could easily do that. Okay, so having now defined the condition that needs to be true so that we can actually start and move the files, obviously the next thing that I need to do is move the files. And straight away, next to that monitor folder object, you can see I've got a move file object. So I can drag that across, put that on the palette, and if I actually hover over the monitor folder, you'll see I get like a little crosshairs. If I do that, I can then draw a line between the two products, hopefully, and that will link the flow of execution. So here, with the move file object, again, if I open it up, just like before, I can effectively now specify source files and the destination folder where I would like to move them to. Now, I could obviously in here type in /QA-HRMap-01/HRMap logs and so on and so forth. But what I can also do is I can start to take advantage of this databus. Okay, so rather than hard code every piece of data, I can actually specify in here to read the path information from the previous step. So the idea being, if later on that folder changed, maybe when we upgrade the application now stores that data somewhere else. I only have to go and edit the first step in my runbook. I wouldn't necessarily need to go and edit steps all the way through my runbook. So if I go into here, I can subscribe to publish data. So this will then show me the monitor folder object, and I can say I want to read data from the origin folder. Okay. But what you'll notice in here is it will put some blue text. Now, that's effectively going to get converted into whatever the source folder is going to be. Now, the key thing to notice here is this will show me effectively what the format of the data is going to be. So in this case, it shows me a local path, but it also would obviously contain / computer name / share name / folder names if applicable. The key thing to notice, if you think about using a command like an xcopy command or a copy command, you would normally have to sort of do some sort of / and then star.log or whatever to complete the syntax. So this significantly shows me there's no trailing / on the end. Okay, so I would actually have to make sure I complete the syntax correctly. So in my case, I'll just put on here /star.log. Okay, and that will then go and define my source location. So now, obviously, on the folder for the destination, I'm going to specify where I would like the files to go. So obviously, this is a completely different area. So I need to enter the destination. So audit SVR/archive logs. There's lots of opportunities to go wrong with typos, as you can imagine. So it would be amazing if it works for first time. Okay, about to type a path name in wrong somewhere. You've then got obviously a fairly straightforward option about what to do if the destination file already exists. I'm just going to say create a file with a unique name, so we'll basically put a date and time suffix on the end. In this instance, on the Advanced tab, we've actually got quite an important option in terms of moving information in terms of preserving the date and time on the source files when we move them to the destination. So if you think about it, if I'm moving files from one server to another, you can't actually do that. You actually do a copy followed by a delete. Now, if these are audit files, making sure that I maintain the original date time information would be really, really important. So that would be something that would be really useful to do. So I'm just going to save that, okay, as my initial demonstration. So we've saved that object. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to the notification object, and I'm actually going to drag on the send event log message. So what I'm going to get this to do is actually just write an event message to tell me how successful or unsuccessful the activities have been. Okay, so I'm just drawing a line between the two entries again. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this information on the event log on the runbook server that it executes on. So I'm just going to put localhost in here, and I'm just going to specify an option that says file name. Okay, but again, what I can do here is I can read data from the databus. So I can read the file name from one of the previous steps. So in my case, obviously the file name is in the file object. So I'm going to read the file name and just read that into here. So a very simple activity to start with, and what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to expand this a little bit and make it a little bit more complex, and hopefully we'll see how we go with this. So at this point I'm going to save it, so I'm going to check this in to the system. Okay. And because I want you to sort of try and see a little bit how the data bus works, what I'm actually going to do in this particular instance is I'm going to run this inside a bit of software that we call the runbook tester. So what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to execute this one step at a time. Okay, so it's going to allow me to sort of view what's going on as we go through each step. So I'm just going to start it. Okay, and just press step. So effectively what we're now doing is we're switching on the monitor object. So I've got a little green triangle telling me that sort of the monitor object's enabled. Now, the thing to remember is sort of like the monitor objects, like monitor folder, only look at a folder every 40 seconds. So, you know, if they looked at it constantly, it would put such a drain and a load on the server in terms of resources, it would actually impact your production performance. So it goes and looks every 30, 40 seconds. And so it's quite possible that I'm going to end up with more than 10 files in there before we actually trigger. Now, at this precise moment, I don't actually have anything that's going to generate any data for me. So I'm just going to go back to Orchestrator, and I'm actually going to use Orchestrator as the application that generates my data. So I'm just going to go to my setup script section, and I've actually got a script here. So this is a script which, as you can see, the first object is not a monitor object. And we can tell that predominantly because it doesn't have a circle at the beginning. It's got like a little sort of starburst object. So this is one of these runbooks which effectively executes once and then dies until it gets invoked by some external process again. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll press the run button on here. Okay, and we'll actually see that we'll get a started down the bottom with a bit of luck, and that will actually tell us that the runbook is executing. There we go. So we'll just minimize that. We'll minimize this, and actually we can see on the left-hand side now, we're now actually generating our data. So I've got the system to generate a log file about every 5 seconds. Okay, so we can see our log files being generated. So hopefully when we get to 10 log files, we should be at the point where our activity in the testing console should be able to detect the condition. So currently we're at 8 items. Okay, so we've just got to wait for a couple more to be created, and then we should be away. So there's 9, and then hopefully we should get 10 items created. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to the testing console, and hopefully in the next 30 seconds the system will wake up. It will detect there's been at least 10 files there, and we should see this effectively move on. So there we go. So we can actually see the fact that we've moved on to the next step. And if I was to hit the show details, we can actually see the number of files that it detected was 11. Okay. So we're now on the move file object. So notice in the move file object, all that blue text actually up here has now been replaced with the actual execution data. So we can see that information there quite clearly. Oops, drag that by mistake. So hopefully, if I go and press step, what this will now go and do is it will go and move all of the files across, okay, or not, as the case may be. So obviously I've made a typo mistake somewhere. So obviously you can tell me that it actually can't actually find my find part of my path, so it can't find my destination path. So obviously I've made a typo mistake there. So we'll just go back in and hopefully fix that. So we'll just stop that there. I told you it's got lots of opportunities for me to make a typo. And we'll just so it's okay. Actually got the server name wrong. So -01. Forgot the -01 in the name of the server name. Okay. So we'll just save that back in. Okay, and then we'll reopen that in the tester. Okay, and we'll do exactly the same again. So we will just go and initiate it. Okay, so again, hopefully it should actually look in the folder when there's 10 files that sort of meet the criteria. So it does take a little while to stabilize and detect the conditions when you first initiate. And then hopefully what we'll do is we'll see that it moves on to the move file object. Hopefully I've got the file name to, or the server name correct this time. So now when I go and press next, we can actually see that it's now moved the file. So if I was just to jump into here, we can see on the left-hand side all the files have disappeared, and actually they're all now on the right-hand side. So they've gone over to the archive logs folder. And then obviously the last step would then be to go and obviously write some data into event log. Now the way the system works, and as I've got it configured at the moment, is it will actually write an event log message for every single file that was moved. So I'm not actually going to complete all of that. I'm just going to press stop rather than write all those event entries. So if we just go into Event Viewer quickly, just to show you that the data has arrived in Event Viewer, if I go into Windows Logs, Application Log, we should hopefully see that I've got my Orchestrator runbook log entry, and you can see the entry for the file name that was actually moved across. So hopefully you can see that sort of quite clearly. Okay, so let's extend this a little bit and make it a little bit more complex. So I'm going to clear out my archive logs folder. So we'll start the process off again shortly. So hopefully we'll just go and make sure that, yeah, that's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of the event log message, okay, and going to change what we're actually going to do. So at this point, what I'm going to do is rather than just leave the files as a big sort of uncontrollable mess, I'm actually going to go back into file management, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to compress the files. Okay, so we're actually going to go and create an archive from them. So I'm going to link the objects together. Okay, so in this instance, what I get to specify is effectively the source files, okay, and the destination file that I would like to actually go and create. So again, I could use the databus here in the fact that I could subscribe to publish data, and I could say, for example, pick the destination folder from the move file. So where the files end up, that's the folder where I want to pass in, and then I can just do start.log. So I can actually specify, obviously, just the log files I want to archive. So what I'm going to do, just because I'm going to be very lazy, is I'm actually going to save the zip file in the same folder as the destination. So again, I'm going to save mid-typing. I'm going to use the destination folder parameter, and I'm just going to create a file called, let's call it HR app audit logs. Okay, zip. Okay, pretty straightforward options. If the destination already exists, what do you want to do? I'd like to add files to the archive, and then obviously the level of compression that you would like to use. Okay. Again, if you need to specify permissions to write to it, that sort of stuff, then obviously you can do that there as well. Okay. Now, based on the behavior that we just saw with the event log, if you think about when the move file executes, that's then effectively going to ask the compressed file object to execute once for every single file. I don't really want that to happen, and I don't want that to happen because I've told it to zip up all the star.log files. So what I need to do is on the move file object is I need to change its behavior. So if I just go to the properties of it, if I go to the run behavior, I can choose flatten. And for the purpose of this conversation, what flatten means is if this object generates multiple data sets, just return one data set. And that will be perfectly good for our scenario. Now, the compress file tool is obviously going to compress the files, but it's not going to do anything with the source files in that destination directory. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get the system to also go and delete those log files as well. So I'm going to go and hit the sort of delete. Again, link these objects together, and I'm going to get it to go and delete the log files for me. So again, I'm actually going to go back to the monitor or the move file. I'm going to say I want to specify the destination folder, and I'd like you to start delete /star.log. Okay. And again, if I needed special credentials, that sort of stuff, I could do that. Now, the delete file is exactly the same as the move file. So if I actually had multiple files in there that we deleted, we would run the next step for each file that exists that we delete. So again, I need to make sure that we don't do that. Okay. So the last thing that I'm going to do is, well, maybe now I've got this zip file, maybe I want to email it to somebody. Maybe I want to just email somebody and tell them that the archive was successfully created, and this is the folder you'll find the archive in, for example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the Exchange user, okay, and I'm going to use the create and send email. Okay, so on here, I'm actually going to put a link in, okay, and I'm going to open this up and I'm going to say that I would like it to send an email. So I've actually got my email account already set up. I'm going to specify who I would like to send the email to. So to Paul Gregory at qa.com. Subject is going to be HR app archive logs. Success. And if I wanted to put some body in there, I could put some body text. If I wanted to, I could go and add additional parameters in here. So effectively, you can see that I could go and put an attachment in, and if I wanted to, I could attach the zip file. Just as let's do it. Okay? So let's put that in. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll get it to obviously read the zip file name from the databus. So we will actually go and look at the compressed file object, archive name and path. Okay, and I will select that value in there. Okay. So hopefully we've got a step that's going to allow it to notify us, in this case, send the archive as part of it. Now, one of the things I've not talked about is actually the lines that link all the objects together. Now, effectively, what happens in Orchestrator, if I just open one of these up, we move on to the next step, providing the preceding step was successful. Okay, so what if it didn't work. I could start to build error handling into the system. So what I might decide to actually do is I might decide to actually put another email object on here. And what I might decide to do is actually have a single email notification for each step. So I could create obviously a specific email notification for each individual step if I wanted to, and have custom messages. Alternatively, I can sort of just link them all to the one step. So what I'm going to do is, because this is the error handling line, I'm obviously going to change it from success and say we're going to follow this route if it's warning or failed. And in the options, I'm actually going to sort of color this line red just to make it stand out a little bit more. So hopefully we'll just go along and we'll do that for these other lines as well. So we'll just obviously change the color to red again. One more line to go. So again, we'll just failed and warning. And obviously again, so the documentation for each step would tell you, what would constitute a failure, what would constitute a warning type message. So for example, if you look at objects like move file, quite often running out of disk space would generate a warning. So if the destination doesn't have enough disk space, that would constitute a warning as opposed to a failed message, for example. So again, obviously what I can do is I can tell it to use my email account. And again, I'll send an email to me at play.com. And we'll basically just put in HR app log file archive failed. Okay. Maybe again you could take advantage of things like the databus. Okay. And you can actually put in information from the sort of previous steps. So if you wanted to try and actually work out the previous step, you could sort of pass information in from those activities if you wanted to. Okay, so you could do those sorts of things. I'm not worried about that. Again, in the optional properties, you could see that obviously I could go and do things like put the importance flag in. So maybe actually what I would like to do is actually flag this as high importance, because obviously it represents a failure. So I've got, excuse me, those components sort of configured up now. So hopefully I've not made any mistakes. So what we'll do is we'll check that in. Okay. And we will press the run button here. We won't run it in the testing console. Okay. And we should hopefully see down the bottom, in this bottom window, we should get a message which says started. So effectively what that means is the monitoring process is now monitoring that folder. Now if I wanted to, I can close the designer and it will carry on running. This is now a process that's been initiated that will run forever, and it will only stop if you basically either manually stop the process or something goes drastically wrong with Orchestrator. So for example, if I had 4 runbook servers, even if I shut the runbook server down that it was executing on, it would just transfer to another runbook server. So you'd have to shut all your runbook servers down effectively to stop the runbook from executing if you was going to try and stop it through that mechanism. So if we just jump into the 2 folders here, again we can actually see they're empty. So we need to generate the data. I'm just going back to my setup script, and I'm hopefully going to go and hit the run option on here, just the same as before, and that will start generating some data. I think a question might have come in. Did the question come in? Oh no, we're okay. So we'll just close that down. Oops. So like that, just gone to the wrong screen. Okay, we can actually see the data is now being generated. Okay, so hopefully what we should see is we should see the data move over to the right-hand side. We should then hopefully see the archive file get created, and we should then see hopefully sort of an email come in. So let's actually see what actually is going to happen at this point. Obviously, it's quite likely I made a typo somewhere. I might have to go and fix something. So it's always the risk with live demos like this. I was very much, you know, of the mind I could do here's some I made earlier type approach, but hey, you don't learn so much that way. So hopefully, there you go. We can see the files have gone across and it's archived them so quickly into the zip. You can see the zip files there. If you wanted to, we can obviously open that up and we can see the files. So we can sort of see that's all happened quite nicely. If we just come down to the runbook, if I go to the log history, okay, we can actually see 737. So hopefully it also looks like it's been successful. It's a bit of an old one, that one. Yeah. So also looking at the wrong script there, aren't I? I do apologise. So let's go back into here. Hopefully, if we look at the log history, so the 1748, we can see it was successful. If I open it up, you can actually see the create and send email step at the end was also successful as well. Obviously, the proof of the pudding is if I come down to my email to see what's going to happen, there we go. We can actually see the log file's been archived to me. Okay, so we can actually see that's arrived and it's sitting there inside my mailbox. So hopefully that's just given you, a really simple example of taking a process, converting it into something that we could do quite easily in Orchestrator. And actually, with the exception of the email components, all I've done is use completely in the box pieces. So effectively, stuff that you get in every single Orchestrator in installation. Okay, so let me just go and stop this script. Okay, and I'll just go and stop this one as well. Okay, so just carrying on from where we started this session, I asked you to send an email to me, and some of you kindly did. Okay, if I go to the demo script section, you can see how simple that runbook is. So what I've actually got here again is a monitor item. Again, you can notice the circle at the top of the object. So what this actually does is it monitors my inbox, okay, and effectively just checking for new items only. And if I go to the filters, we're looking for emails that contain the phrase text space week. If I wanted to, I could have been a little bit more complex here. You'll actually see that we can do sort of equals and does not equals and stuff as well with these types of things. I could have actually picked other fields if I wanted to, or put multiple fields in. If I put multiple fields in, then they would all have to be true for it to match. So I could have said, oh, you've got to send me a Tech Week email, and it has to be sent to me as urgent, for example. And I could have built the rules that way. And then, very simply, obviously on the create and send email, I'm using the same tool that I've just shown you, and effectively, I've actually got the text in here for the email that you're actually getting back. Again, if I wanted to do some more complex stuff, then I could have quite happily have had additional steps in here. And to give you an illustration of some sort of consultancy advice I gave to a customer on this type of process. Actually, a customer working for the medical industry, and they actually did the IT support for this medical establishment. And one of the things that was under the rules of the agreement, effectively, was that the outsourced organisation wouldn't deal with activities like password resets. The actual doctors and nurses and all that in the medical organisation had a self-service password reset tool. Now, however, you've got a nurse ringing you at 2 o'clock in the morning, a bit frantic, can't log onto the system, needs to get access to some medical records. There's something that might be going on. It becomes very difficult to turn around and say, well, we don't actually support you. You have to go through the password reset tool. So in a situation where it was then a case of, sort of get out of bed, power the laptop on, remote desktop into the infrastructure, find the user's user account, perform a password reset. So what we actually did was we built a process with some security checks involved, which actually used the monitor item. So effectively, the person that was rung could send an email to a specific mailbox. That mailbox was being monitored by Orchestrator, and it would expect certain information in the email, and it would effectively be able to take that information and then reset the user's password automatically. So effectively, the person that got phoned at 2 o'clock in the morning could actually send the email just from their phone. Didn't even need to worry about all those other bits and pieces. So their sleep was impacted as little as possible, if you like. So that's just a simple example of the way this sort of technology can be used. So let's turn it into a slightly different model now, and let's go and look at maybe using it more in a way to keep wheels on sort of on a production environment. Okay, so let's take a pretty simple example. So what should we do? So I'm just going to open up my web browser with a bit of luck. Okay, hopefully you can see that we've got a nice sort of website here for the Zoom. Okay, which is working. That website is sitting on one of my other virtual machines. And if I was to actually go across to my domain controller, this is actually where the website is sitting. Okay, this website is also being monitored by is actually being monitored by Operations Manager. So if we was to again come along to another virtual machine, I've actually got Operations Manager sitting here, and as well as doing a few other bits and pieces, it's monitoring that website. Okay, so let's generate a failure. Okay, so if we go into our domain controller, if we go into services, okay, and just scroll down to the World Wide Web Publishing Service and just go and stop that. Okay, what we want to hopefully see happen is within the detection times of the manage pack. I've not made any tuning improvements here, so hopefully within a minute we should actually see a message come back which will actually tell us that the website's offline. Okay, so we'll actually be in a situation where the website's failed. So what we want to do is we want to create an automated response that will actually bring the website back online for us. And we're going to use Orchestrator effectively to do that monitoring and then actually report back. So you can see there's a whole load of messages that have come back because the machine's also got WSUS running on the domain controller. So all I really care about is that bottom error message here. So IIS 8 website unavailable. Okay, so that's what I care about, and I need to be very aware of the actual syntax of the error message itself, because what I'm going to basically do is I'm going to rely on a string match in this particular incident. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we'll go and actually start the web service back up so that the error message can self-resolve. And let's go and build ourselves an Orchestrator runbook, which is going to monitor for that condition and then effectively take corrective action. Okay, so again, it's going to be a very simplistic example, but hopefully you sort of get an idea. So if I was to go over to Orchestrator, we'll just minimize that for now, and we'll go and create ourselves a new runbook. So I'm actually going to new runbook. Okay. So rename QA Tech Week Zoo website restart. Okay, so just like before, because we're going to be looking for a condition where we're going to be monitoring, what we want to do is we want to use a monitor object. So you can see I've actually got what we call integration packs loaded, and I've got the integration pack here for Operations Manager. So this is actually something that's going to give me the ability to understand Operations Manager and monitor it. Now, I guess one thing that's quite important to talk about is integration packs very quickly. A a lot of people that do work with Orchestrator get obsessed with integration packs. And when they want to get Orchestrator to talk to a particular product, they often turn around and say, oh, is there an integration pack for that product? And if the answer to that is no, they go, oh, we can't get Orchestrator to talk to it. You know, Orchestrator can talk using really any interface that a machine might have. We can use SSH, we can use database connectivity, WMI, you know, we can script to it, whatever you might need to do. So it's not having an integration pack doesn't mean you can't talk to it. You can still talk to that remote system. It might be a little bit harder, but you can still communicate with that system. So quite often people get obsessed by integration packs, and not having an integration pack isn't a showstopper. So just like before, we've got the monitor alert. So again, I'm going to go and pick the connection object. So the connection object, just like the exchange object, effectively identifies the name of the Orchestrator server, and it identifies the credentials that I'm going to log into it. Saves me having to enter it on every particular object. So I'm only going to be interested in new alerts. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some filters in. Okay, so I actually want to make sure that the resolution state for it is actually going to be new. We don't want to react to messages which are already being handled by somebody, so if they've actually changed the resolution state. So I'm actually going to make sure that we're just going to set that to new. Okay, what I'm then going to do is add in a second step, and I'm actually going to go and pick the entry that says name. Now this name here is actually the name that appears. If I go back to the operations manager machine, it's actually the name that appears in this column here. Okay, that's what we care about. So that's where we had the IIS 8 website is unavailable. Okay, so hopefully that's what we'll get it to match. Now I could obviously do an equals. I could actually just be quite lazy and do things like contains, and we do support regex string matching if you want to do things like that as well. So hopefully we'll try it, and it's not case sensitive, but we'll type it in and hopefully we won't make any typo mistakes. So ISO website is unavailable. Okay, so hopefully we've not made any typos there. So that's effectively, hopefully, going to detect my condition. Okay. Now, again, you know, if, for example, let me just go into service managing. I'm not going to do this because I don't have a service manager machine. But, you know, obviously, the first thing I might go and do, for example, with my help desk product, is actually go and create an incident. So actually, what I might do is I might actually detect an error condition in Ops Manager, and then get Orchestrator to actually go and create an incident in my help desk platform. Orchestrator is then going to try and manage it. If it manages to resolve it correctly, it will update the incident and actually identify that it managed to fix it, and close the incident. So at least that way it's been documented, it's been logged, and you can manage your IT. If, for example, Orchestrator wasn't able to resolve it, let's say I actually had in here 5 possible remediations. It tried all 5 of those remediations, and none of them fixed the problem. Okay. At that point, you could get an Orchestrator, rather than close the incident, obviously update the incident and say these are the 5 things that I tried, and actually escalate the incident. There'd be no point necessarily sending that to tier 1 support, so you might want to send it to tier 2 support, or maybe if it's a mission critical application, you might want to send it to the support team immediately and just bypass everybody else. So you can make those decisions on what you would want to do next. So obviously I'm not going to do that, but you know, that's the sort of thing that you could quite easily do. So in my case, I'm just going up to the top here, and I'm going into the system section. Because in the system section, what we've actually got in here is we've actually got an option which will allow us to actually start and stop services with a bit of luck. There we go, start, stop services. So I'm just going to drag this on and connect the 2 objects together. Okay, open this object up, and we're going to say we'll start the service. Okay, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to pass the computer name from the previous object. So I could make this applicable for not hard code it to a particular machine. But what I am going to do, just for demonstration purposes, is I'm actually just going to just check the name of my DC, QADC01. Put in QADC01 here, because then when I go and press the button here, what that will do is it will actually read all of the services from that machine. So therefore I can actually much easier actually pick the service from the list. If I'd left it on the SCOrch machine, it might not have had the correct service name. Okay, so in the computer name field, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the published data again. Okay, and I'm actually going to put in the computer name, the NetBIOS computer name from the monitoring object. Okay, so NetBIOS computer name. Okay, so I'm going to bring that in. If you needed to specify any parameters, then obviously you could do that if you wanted to. So I'm quite happy with that. Perfectly acceptable from that point of view. Obviously, at this point, again, I might want to tell someone. So I might want to go and use tools like the send email type tool, if that's what I want to do. So I can actually sort of hook that in again for a success, and actually turn around and say that we managed to successfully start the web service. So I could actually put in the computer name, so subscribe, publish data. So service computer, might as well pick it from here. One of the things you will find a lot with Orchestrator is these boxes end up being a bit small. You do have this expand tool, which allows you to sort of take any text field effectively and make it much, much larger, so you can actually see what you're doing a bit better. So then I'll put the computer name in, and I'll put in www service, says service restarted. Okay, and that's all I'll do there. And again, I could put a failure tract in here. So if I wanted to, I could obviously have a failure tract which would actually go on to other remediation. So that didn't work. Let's go on to a second remediation, whatever that remediation might be. Okay, so in my instance, I'm actually going to go this way if it warnings or failed, and I will just go and update this to actually say we actually want to notify you that it actually failed. So again, we'll do exactly the same as we did before. So we'll read the computer name in. Service found to restart. And this time, because obviously it's a failure, again, I might want to go in and put a higher importance in there. So we'll go and make the link a different color so we can see that as well. So hopefully, again, a very simplistic runbook, but to sort of just try and highlight some of these basic principles. So let's check this in. Okay, and what we can do is we can hit the run button. Okay, so what we should see is it will say starting down the bottom, which will actually tell me that effectively it's monitoring. Now, before I go and initiate a failure, if I just go into the operations manager object, this is where we define the configuration information. So I've not shown you this on any of the others, but effectively you can see here's where I can find the name of my server, the credentials that I'm going to log in with, and here you can see actually how often we're querying the operations manager machine. So we're querying it every 10 seconds. Okay. So hopefully, if I go across to my DC01 machine and we go and actually stop the service again. Okay, so we can see the service has stopped. If we go across to the operations manager machine, obviously the first thing we're going to be hoping to see in here is we're going to be able to see the website stop message, so we can see that's actually arrived. So hopefully if we go over to the orchestrator machine, okay, you see we've got 2 started now. So that actually means that it started a new monitor in case the condition occurs again, and actually it's sent a message across, okay? So it's completed with warning, but actually it failed to start the service for some reason. Invalid service name, I'll have a look at that in a second. So actually, it's actually obviously sent a warning error message. So we'll actually go back to DC1, we'll actually see obviously that it's still in a stop state. So let me just go and start that up. Okay, so the condition can reset itself, and we'll just go and have a quick look at why that might have failed. I just want to check that the label I've got at the top is really the computer name. It's actually we browsed from the computer name. Okay, so let's have a quick look, see if I can find out an obvious reason why that actually failed. So hopefully, if we go into here, the parameters, start service. Okay, just in case we haven't got enough credentials, I'm just going to put in the credentials. The actual runbook server itself might not have enough permissions to be able to start the service, so it might be a permissions issue. So I'm actually just going to put some alternative credentials in now to actually go and start the service. Okay, so hopefully that should be perfectly okay. Ooh. Try that again. So I'm trying to modify it while it's currently executing. Okay, so let me just go and put those credentials back in. Okay, so we'll obviously set the condition up again, and we will try and see what happens this time. As always, nothing worse than actually trying to write stuff on the fly. Always the possibility for things to catch you out when you're not fully paying attention. Okay, so hopefully we're back in the monitoring state. So again, we'll stop the service again. And we'll go across to the SCOrch machine. Hopefully we should see the alert reappear. And once the alert appears, we know we should see it in Ops Manager. We know that Orchestrator, and we know Orchestrator is actually detecting the alert correctly. So there's actually the alert, and hopefully this time it will manage to restart the activity. So the first thing we'll see is the second started. So we've started a new monitor just in case the condition occurs again, and we're now sort of executing the steps for the other tasks. So now we can see that we've actually executed that correctly. Okay. If we actually go into DCO1, if I now just go and do an F5, we can actually see the web service is now up and running. If I go into Operations Manager, we should hopefully see in the next 30 seconds, those 2 error messages will actually self-resolve. So effectively, we've for want of a better phrase, sometimes put a band-aid over a situation, or maybe if we've got a problem which we know we have no solution to, we get Orchestrator actually managing that condition for us. Okay, so hopefully just showing you very simplistically again another scenario. Now, from a real-world point of view, it's quite important to mention this. Excuse me. You would obviously have error handling in there. I've not gone into how we would put error handling, how we would actually really handle certain scenarios from an error handling point of view. So hopefully those couple of demonstrations have been sort of quite useful for you. I guess the other thing which is quite important to highlight, sort of the slightly more complex examples I've already done anyway, is runbooks are also now a way that Microsoft are actually offering additional value. If you think about, if you went back to 1999, 2000, 2001, quite often Microsoft would turn around and say, oh, we've got a VB script that makes doing this a lot easier, and they would give you VB scripts. And if you went back, and even today, they would give you PowerShell scripts. But you are actually seeing for the more complex activities, they are now designing runbook automation activities. So I don't know if any of you were on my Hyper-V session on Tuesday, okay, and we talked about Hyper-V Replica. One of the things, for example, Microsoft had is they have a set of orchestrator runbooks for managing Hyper-V Replica. So you can actually get it to build, you can get it to initiate your failovers, all using orchestrator runbooks, for example. And they've built that as a complete solution, which you can just download from the TechNet website and start to use that on your estate. Now, chances are you've got to go in there and make some customizations. If nothing else, you've got to configure computer names and so on. But ultimately, what you've got is anywhere from 75% of the configuration, if you've got a complex configuration, right up to about 95% actually all built for you and ready to go. So that could be a really, really sort of useful set of technologies. And we're seeing this more and more from Microsoft, more and more. So just from the point of view of courses, again, I'm not going to bore you to death like I did on my Hyper-V session. We do have an orchestrator course. It's a 3-day session, QA SCOrch 12. And as far as I'm aware, we are really one of the only people in Europe that have a dedicated orchestrator course. That might be something you're really interested in. And obviously, we start off right at the basics and we go right through and integrated with a few products. We also have in-depth courses on all of the other System Center products as well, if they're of interest to you. I guess really just from the point of view of a couple of things that I'd like to just mention, as well as obviously our training courses. If you would like to know a bit more about Orchestrator and for whatever reason you're unable to attend a training course, one thing I would recommend is look up a gentleman called Charles Joy. Have a look for him on YouTube. He's called the MS Orchestrator Guy. And he was actually, he's the senior product manager or program manager for Orchestrator, and he used to work for Parlous, where Orchestrator come from. He's got lots of really good videos which will get you going with the Orchestrator product. As well as that, obviously, please feel free to email us if you've got any questions about Tech Week. Again, we'd love whatever feedback you've got about Tech Week. So please feel free to keep in contact. If you want to ask me specifically about Orchestrator, please feel free to email me directly or via the Tech Week address. Also, I do a bit of Twitter. So if you follow me on Twitter, you would have found out that I was at my daughter's school this morning at 8 o'clock, because on Fridays my daughter's school do a fried breakfast for the parents. So that's quite a good idea in my book. And I also have a YouTube channel as well. So again, there's no Orchestrator stuff up there, but there's lots of other stuff which you might find quite interesting. So that sort of brings me to the session. I think we're about 10 minutes early. So those sort of demonstrations have gone reasonably well. I'm just going to switch back to the WebEx infrastructure, just to see if there was any questions. It doesn't seem that there's been any questions. Or if anyone wants to put a question into the chat box, they're more than welcome to. Otherwise, that sort of brings me to the end of the session. So thank you very much for listening. I believe Sam might have a couple of housekeeping bits she'd like to mention, if Sam's there. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. And just my last point really is just to say that when you leave the session tonight, our survey will launch in your browser window. I appreciate it coming on 6:30, but it'd be really great if you could just take a couple of minutes to give us some feedback. And thank you.